Welcome to my 1 year check-in with No Nicotine. And in today's video, I'm going to be doing a check-in and also a recap of what has changed over this 1 year journey, this 1 year transformation from, smoking nicotine every day, you know, multiple times in an hour, and not knowing that I could actually, and at first not knowing that I could apply myself to a path and then be able to, 1 year later, be doing that much better, be thriving, not just surviving, and also striving to become an even better version of myself each day that comes. And it's been 1 year total without nicotine. Anyone out there who's on their journey, whether you're continuously smoking nicotine or whatever substance you may want to eliminate, or if you are, already quit nicotine and you are, let's say, above 1 year without nicotine, or maybe below 1 year without nicotine, will power to you as well. Stay strong on your journey. And where I'm at is exactly 1 year with no nicotine. And in today's video, I'm going to check in and recap, what has changed in this 1 year, as well as what I am, looking forward to. Also, upcoming changes in the future. And if this is your first time on my channel, welcome. I hope you enjoyed the video. This is an informational video, as well as anyone out there who needs help or strength or anything like that. This can motivate you to also apply yourself to your own path and be able to make changes to make yourself into a better version of yourself. Thank you for anyone who has watched my channel in the past and anyone who has interacted as well as supported, whether on or off the channel. And thank you, I want to say, as well as I'm going to continue to spread as much consciousness when it comes to the mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional states of being, especially when it comes to substance use, which I have mostly been talking about on my channel. Yet there's a lot more information on my channel just other than just nicotine content or substance use content. But that is primarily what I do have, and I'm willing to get into some other content for sure. I just wanted to get to this point. I saw it coming for a while, this 1 year milestone, and yeah, I'm glad to be here, but I still know that there's a lot of work to be done. So it's going to be it's like no other day on this journey. It's like no other day. Each day of this journey, I've had to be strong, just like today. I've had to be disciplined, just like today. So let's get into, mentally what has changed over this 1 year without nicotine. And there's a lot other than just a absolute mindset shift, which from 1 year ago to today, I would mentally think about, not up until today, but I'd say throughout this 1 year there was a progression. Of course, everything happens, it changes through time, and there's a progression of a mindset change, a mindset shift from being dependent on nicotine and mentally it having a lot of, let's say, mental space, mental reach over my mental state of being, and towards today, I see nicotine as something that I would not want to surround myself with, primarily because I know what it's like. I've dealt with it in the past, and throughout that mindset, I've been able to develop the point of if I am necessarily seeing some nicotine or anything like that, it's up to each individual to make that decision for themselves. And I'm not necessarily going to judge them because, I was once there on that path, so I kind of understand and I know how things can be a challenge in that sense of it. And, developing that mindset, developing that mental perspective of, if I wanted to go to this substance, I could. I could do that because each person's in charge of their own actions. I'm only choosing to do this because I am doing the right thing for my well-being when it comes to preserving that, also working in longevity down the road. So when it comes to that, mentally, I'm not so, let's say, versus, throughout this time period to get to this 1 year mark, I would say that I was more over here. This is before, this is right here where we are now. I was like this. I want to smoke, I don't want to smoke. I want to smoke, I don't want to smoke. And that's nicotine. But throughout time, it was I want to smoke? No, I don't want to smoke. And that's where it ended. I just don't want that anymore. And throughout this time, it's been the mentally detaching from nicotine, detaching from that, that activity that I was so mentally involved in, and also physically, spiritually, and emotionally involved in. But at the time, things were much more challenging, going back from I want to smoke, I don't want to smoke, I want to smoke, I don't want to smoke. But now where I'm at, I rarely think about nicotine, and I think that just goes to show how powerful the mind can be. And, as of me, I only went 1 year so far without nicotine versus my 5.5 years before this 1 year of continuous use and almost non-stop use. Minor breaks here and there, but almost non-stop use. And to say and to show how much things have changed mentally is what I want to express, to where people can say, wow, you know what, the mind's a really powerful thing. It can do miraculous things when it comes to, the sheer power and the strength that one own's mind can, comprehend, can dialect, can, not dialect, but can use the correct words to divulge a certain subject or to explain a concept. But, it just goes to show that the mind can do what you put it to do, and that's like taking care of the mental state of being. And that should go for anyone out there who's questioning, should I quit nicotine? Is there any reason for me to quit nicotine? Well, let's just say that preserving your mental state of being is for sure important. And if that is important to you, then I'm sure that you will make it right by your actions. But for anyone, like I said, I've only gone 1 year without nicotine, and there's much of little to no attachment to it whatsoever when it comes to mentally. You see it around, but you see it for what it is, much more on a scale that is much greater now. And whereas before, mentally, before nicotine was stopped in my reality, I was mentally very fixated on the substance, mentally very stagnant, very immature mentally. Things that I have noticed is that, and I noticed this throughout the process of quitting, and I do have a video on it, but I've noticed that when you are, let's say, smoking the nicotine or smoking that vapor, which is a form of air, it's going into your mind and it's affecting the way your mental state of being is existing. So I've noticed, and I know personally, that this not necessarily played out through me, but I could see the energy and see that the presence of that energy was there if things had played out that way. And it was, kind of taking the structure away of your thoughts and disarraying your mental state of being. Whereas some people, they advocate for nicotine's a great magical substance for mental stability, for mental strength, for it's a nootropic, for psychological benefits and such things like this. Okay, well, if you say that that's true, why is it also true that it puts your thoughts in a disarrayed order and it can cause you to mentally be not necessarily having the strongest mental state of being per se? When in short term, maybe it can help with some mental stress, it can help relieve whatever's there, or provide some sort of a stimulation. Why not just get that stimulation from doing something in life, applying your mental state of being to something that is important to you, and then therefore getting the high from that? Why don't you chase the high from the stability and the strength of the mental state of being and the soundness of not being so attached to, let's say, nicotine or any substance that there is, or that there could be, or any action that there could be, that there is. So yeah, the stagnation when it comes to mentally has definitely changed, and the will and want to use my mental state of being for much other things has just continuously started to increase. And mentally, at the 1 year check-in, I have realized that mentally I'm almost extremely stimulated when it comes to my mental state of being, where I honestly am, without anything, I am mentally very stimulated, mentally very focused, not needing anything for this focus, and mentally the will to continuously grow mentally, the will to continuously mentally have that willpower, that mental strength, that mental stability, and that mental freedom is continuing to grow and continuing to grow stronger each day. So for anyone who is mentally stressed out, you may be addicted to nicotine and you think that, oh, it helps me mentally, it helps with my mental anxiety, it helps with my mental stress, whatever it may be, this is proof that you actually go a long time without that nicotine, or let's say without that substance that has you in a mental state of compromise. Let's say you actually do that, you put in that work, you make that decision to go without that, you're going to be in a much better space when it comes to mentally, and you'll be in such a space when it comes mentally that you'll see other people that are where you once were, and you'll be able to tell, the differences. Why is my mindset different than this person's? And if you can key it into a physical action that is now affecting the mental state of being, then you can trace that back. And if you can't necessarily trace it to a physical thing, then trace it to a more of a behavior and or energetic signature that you read off the person, and be able to tell mentally, I am much more mentally in my power and mentally in a state of well-being, in a state of mental stability. And you'll be able to, why not just do this, be able to see, hey, what are things like differently mentally now? Now that I've stopped using my substance that has mentally kept me stagnated and mentally held me back, regardless of all the maybe perceived benefits, perceived positives, or delusionally perceived benefits of this, let's see how it is when I move on from this. How are things going to change now? And this is going to benefit the mental state of being. Not only that, but back when I did also use the nicotine, this was 1 year ago, I would say that I almost thought that I had thoughts that vaping, using nicotine were cool, and I think that's just because I was involved with it, and from what I saw around me, that's pretty much what I thought was going on. And I come to find out, and I start to know that there's nothing really, let's say, cool about it. It's all about what one person agrees with, and there's a lot of other things that come to play when it comes to things that are going to now affect all your states of being and you as a being. Then that's when I think people need to be more aware. People need to be more understanding and understanding of what they are what are they actually involving themselves with. And that's another reason why I make these videos, just so people can understand and have that perspective of, okay, this is how things can be, this is how things are. What are you going to choose? What are you going to choose for you? And mentally, in the mental state of being, you will be much stronger when you take power and control over your mental thought forms. So whereas I used to think, oh, this is cool, I think I'm cool for doing this, I don't see it as that way today, right? I see it as, no, that's someone that is, using whatever they can, and not necessarily just nicotine, but in the case of nicotine, one is being toxic towards oneself. So keep that into mind, because that action is negative when it comes to how it affects your states of being. Regardless of what you may perceive it as, what your perspective is, it's going to have its effects regardless of that. So stay protected when it comes to mentally, and let's get into physically. What has changed physically since I quit nicotine 1 year ago, and mostly is the absolute detachment from nicotine, the ability to be around nicotine, and that's not just be around it. I'm talking about actually, quite literally, breathing in the smoke of nicotine, the smoke containing the particle nicotine, and quite literally not feeling any of the effects. And this is based off on being spiritually protected, mentally protected, emotionally protected, and physically protected. It was a combination of taking care of oneself that allowed me to be around nicotine, be breathing in the smoke that had once possibly did contain those particles of nicotine, and feel absolutely zero effects from that. And I'm telling you that if that isn't something that can motivate or maybe inspire or inform someone to quit nicotine, then I don't know what does, because that's miraculous. I've not only been able to do this with cigarette smoke, and heavy cigarette smoke that is, but also with nicotine smoke, like say off of a vape, say off of a disposable device, and a possible reusable device, and also a trio of smokers that was blowing smoke. I felt no effects from these circumstances I honestly would expect myself after that circumstance to possibly get a minor headache, maybe a major headache. But actually, those headaches didn't actually come from that. They just happened to happen, not directly correlated with that event, not directly after that event, but in and around that event when it was a natural noticing, where I noticed that that was a natural pattern for me. That's not out of the ordinary for me to get a headache like that. And while I was experiencing, being physically surrounded by the smoke and physically possibly being exposed, like I said, to the smoke of nicotine, I knew that this was making me stronger. For whatever reason, something happened where, imagine, something just floating through the air, and I just get a whiff of that, and immediately my eyes turn black. I see red. No, I'm just kidding. But I really, in the moment, just shut down, made sure that this was not going to affect me whatsoever. Shut down and necessarily did what I had to do to protect myself. And I've talked about this in other videos. If that's not where you are, then for sure, put yourself in a space where you're protected. Put yourself in a space where you don't have to breathe in that air. And a technique that I gained at first, where I wasn't able to just go around it and not have it affect me and be so close to it, yet so far, was go like this. Simply take a breath of air, hold that breath of air in, and go take yourself to a space that is right for you, a space that you are going to be able to breathe the air that is correct for you. But like I said, this isn't going to be a problem much, and you shouldn't even have to worry when it comes to this, because physically, you'll stay protected the more that you are interested in making gains when it comes to the physical state of being. So it's really as simple as that when it comes to staying protected along the journey physically, and the process of detaching from the substance. Not just nicotine, but I'm talking about any substance that anyone can be involved with. And physically, whereas when I was first doing the nicotine, for almost 5.5 years, I would say that you would still get maybe some congestion, maybe some hard of breathing or whatever it may be. And I'm telling you now, the moment that I quit, I really noticed physically my body detaching from the nicotine. In the first 24 hours, you'll notice some strong urges to smoke, some strong urges. You'll feel this energy, this excess of energy that you just can't really explain, but try to transmute that, try to channel that energy that you're feeling. That's possibly the anxiety. Channel that into things that are going to benefit you. Channel that into not just things that are going to physically benefit you, but mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And that's right, in the first 24 hours, you're going to feel that excess of energy, and then you'll start to feel your mind, your body, your emotional state of being, your spirit to continuously start to detach from that nicotine, detach from it, and continuously, each time it detaches, you get a little bit stronger, a little bit more overcoming over that battle, over that war that you're at. And you'll notice that. You'll notice your breathing will start to be much more better. You'll notice, you can sleep a lot more better. What else will you notice? You won't be waking up in the middle of the night trying to hit your device as much, or ever, possibly. Physically, you might move into a space where you can understand how you can involve yourself in a moderation when it comes to using substances. You can be the judge of that for yourself. You can work to that place for sure, if that's where you want to be. A lot of times, I'm sure that, or not a lot of times, but I can only speak for what I know, and I know that originally I had envisioned, after 1 year, oh, go ahead and try nicotine again. 1 year, that's 365 days, that's long enough. That's not merely long enough. I smoked for 5.5 years. I got a lot more work to do when it comes to putting in. And I've got a lot further to go if I want to do that. So when I originally thought that, that has been absolutely changed, and that just goes to show how much you can make change on a path of growth, and a journey of becoming a better version of yourself. And you notice all the changes when it comes to physically. You'll notice that your diet becomes a lot more better, your metabolism is much more cleaner, and I guess, you're essentially, like I said, detaching from the nicotine. And I just noticed a difference. Like I said, I can be around it, I can be near it and stuff like that. And I'll actually share with you guys something that happened. I was just where I used that technique to get away, to get into a space. I was just in the bathroom, and someone literally comes out of a stall, I came out of a stall, and someone's literally sitting there just right in my face, and I had the urge to go like this, smack it out of my hair, or smack it out of my face, but I just didn't. I literally went like this, continuously did what I had to do, finished up, washed my hands, whatever, and got out of there. So that's just one example of what I did when I did actually change that habit when it comes to physically. And that little trick of, hey, if someone's around you possibly gonna affect your state of being, then don't allow that to happen. Do whatever you can that's in your power to make sure that that doesn't happen. I can physically, like I said, continue on this path for a great time, and I think that could be a motivation as well when it comes to why one would quit nicotine. Is, you continuously are detaching from the nicotine or that substance that you're going without, and you know that you're benefiting your physical well-being. My bad. But anyways, you're benefiting your physical well-being, you're benefiting your health, you're allowing yourself to experience longevity when it comes to down the road. And if that's the case, then continue on that path. Continue on that path of becoming a better version of yourself. You're going to be able to be rewarded, and when it comes to down the line, because physically you're taking care of the vessel that you're in, so physically you're going to be able to exist longer, and you're going to be able to do actions that you wanted to detach from before, but you didn't. But then let's say if you did detach from it, you'll have that option down the road if you want to do that again. And let's just say, hey, maybe you do that when things are looking a lot fulfiller. Maybe you have everything you need when it comes to gaining stability and structure, and when it comes to living in the world we live in today, and you're much better off. And you think, hey, now's the time where I need to relax, I put in the work, let me reward myself. I do think there's space for rewarding oneself when it comes to that, but like I said, it's for each to be their own judge of what they're physically going to do when it comes to evolving their physical state of being and how you interact with the physical world. I just want to share my perspective because that was developed through my journey of going without, through my journey of gaining a lot of knowledge and wisdom on this path and on this journey. So if I can come here and I can share that with you guys, that you guys can have something to relate to, then that's something that I like. I like to relate a lot. And if you're relating, I appreciate you. If you made it to this video and this point in this video so far, then let me tell you again, I appreciate you. Show some support and I'll support you back. And when it comes to physically, that's really a lot of what I've noticed is complete disattachment, complete separation from nicotine when it comes to physically. And then, like I said, complete protection of being around nicotine, secondhand smoke, any of that stuff. Like I said, it does not have an effect once you are physically at a state of being that is strong enough for you. Alright, take a quick intermission, and then we're going to get right back into this. One moment, guys. I appreciate your patience. You can fast forward this part if you don't want to watch this part. Sometimes that's what you have to do, you know? Take a break from what you're doing and come back to it when you're a little bit fresher, you know? Just give yourself a second. I'm back. Let's get right into emotionally recap over this 1 year without nicotine. And let me check in with you guys when it comes to emotionally. After this 1 year period of no nicotine. And I would say I'm much more emotionally wiser. What I would consider this is being able to identify necessarily what I want more, what I feel about things a lot more, how I can experience those right emotions that are actually lining up with the thought that I'm having. So, I mean, if you're having a thought and you want to be able to, confirm that thought, or maybe make that thought comfortable to you, and or accept that thought into your reality when it comes to your emotional state of being, then you can have that emotional state of being, be able to let me find some more music here real quick. I don't know if I've done this more or not. And have that emotional feeling, connect to that thought that you have, and the divine relationship between the two will make you a much, more stable individual, because your thoughts and your feelings will be in tandem with one another, and they'll be agreeing with one another. Whereas before, if I emotionally am extremely dependent on a substance, yet mentally I know and I have thoughts of, this isn't right for me, I shouldn't continue doing this, then boom, there you go. That is an example of those thoughts and those feelings not being, you know, weaving together and in support of one another. So when you have the thought and the feeling being in support of one another, that definitely increases stability when it comes to your stability, whether it be mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. So definitely there, I noticed that I can much more have that emotional wiseness to me and grow emotionally, to not be so attached to, oh, I need this to make me feel good. I need this to make me feel good. If I'm not seeing this around me, I'm not seeing this, I'm not thinking this, I'm not feeling this, I don't feel spiritually like I'm in the right space. Regardless of that, I've been able to, and this has come with a lot of work. This is not easy whatsoever. It takes a lot of work behind the scenes, in the shadows, doing the work, putting in the work, and of course, not only that, but making the videos. And that's another part of putting in the work, getting the information out there. So yes, it came with a lot of work, and I think that as of recently, I've been able to get to that point a lot better and be able to implement that point, which is awesome for being at that 1 year milestone and being able to see some new things playing out, being able to tell, hey, things are always changing. Like I said, this journey, the journey that you are on, it is constantly going to change. There's constantly going to be different things happening, and you'll come to realize that, and you'll possibly be extremely stimulated and extremely interested with what is playing on and what is going on through the life that we're in. So being able to have that, emotional strength, like I said, the emotional stability, to regardless of what's going on around you, be able to self-validate, be able to not only self-validate your thoughts with your feelings, but also validate your feelings with your thoughts, be able to have that balance between the two, and to be able to live in, let's say, harmony. So, for sure, emotionally, I was not wanting to move on from these actions of using this substance constantly, deriving my emotional state out of this substance regardless of what's going on around me. Just like I said just now, I had that same perspective, but it was in a negative, or let's say adverse way towards the self. And I have already played this song on this channel before, so I want to listen. I want to see if I can find something new here. Let's see. But yeah, that same adverse would be happening. Hold up, let me find this. And I just forgot what I was talking about, of course, because I'm on this, but I'll figure it out. The adverse of that. What would that be? I think it was the adverse of, okay, I'm not so emotionally dependent on a substance. And, that's not necessarily the thing. I wish I could go back and replay this video and try to figure out what my point was right there. But maybe it'll come to me. Maybe I'll come to me throughout the rest of this video, and if not, I'll just make a post after this, and this post is going to cover what I was talking about and what I missed out, because once I hear it again, it just needs to be brought back up again, and I'll be able to make that point. But yeah, let me choose a song, or let me choose a playlist here. This one's good, let's see.
Have you heard about this?
No, this is not good. I've been on this one before. But yeah, emotionally, always getting stronger, always being able to not be emotionally dependent on that outcome. And I think that was something to having to do with what my point was, but I'm not quite there yet. Let's see. I am on a playlist. Okay. Yeah, emotionally, you continuously get stronger emotionally when it comes to your detachment to a substance, your detachment to a nicotine per se, and you're able to mature when it comes to emotionally. You're not so dependent on something to get you by when it comes to emotionally. You're not specifically deriving all that good emotional fulfillment, all those good feelings of, okay, this is something that I want to continuously do. I want to stay stagnant in this energy. No. Now, once you've quit, once you've gone on to take the actions to become better, you'll emotionally become more mature, emotionally have that perspective of, that's not something I need anymore. I actually am going to grow from this. I'm actually going to detach from this. I'm emotionally realizing that although, I felt so good when I was smoking nicotine, or when I was doing that substance, I felt so great. Yeah, but regardless from that, how will you feel without it? Like you felt before you even did that substance. And not only that, but you are still, while you're saying, oh, that was great, oh, it was feeling great, don't lie to yourself. You don't want to be trapped in addiction. You don't want to be doing something that you feel like you don't have a choice in. And if you know that, then emotionally it has a burden on your emotional state of being. Don't allow that to be the thing that, traps me into, I'm not changing. This is something that helps me get by. I repeat, do not allow your emotional state of being to become burdened when it comes to by addiction, by use of substance, by use of negative action or toxic behavior or whatnot. And a way that you can help to avoid becoming so emotionally dependent to something is to always make sure when you're doing something that you're emotionally balanced, and that, like I said, you're able to tie those thoughts with the feeling and then the feelings with the thoughts, and be able to exist in that way of, I'm not going to let this affect me, this isn't going to give me any trauma, I'm not going to have baggage from this, I'm literally doing this because I understand how this will play out in all states of beings, and I'm willing to accept that. But if you're not willing to accept that, then continuously put yourself in the right state of being by being aware when it comes to emotional state of being. And if your emotional state of being is not so stable, then you gotta think, how's that gonna affect your mental state of being? Because those work together. How's it gonna affect your physical state of being? How's it gonna affect your spiritual state of being? So just for you guys to think about it. Think about, don't you want to be emotionally fulfilled just by, what's going on in your life, or what kind of things are happening, what kind of actions, or what kind of other actions you're taking, aside from that substance, aside from that negative action. So that's about for the emotional state of being. It is a path of staying protected, staying strong, continuously paying attention to and being able to be a lot more aware of, why do I feel a certain way? How is this feeling going to teach me something? What can I learn from, hey, that made me feel this way, or this is making me feel that way? Being able to tap more into that intuition is definitely benefited, and I've noticed that for sure when it comes to this process of, in my case, quitting an addiction of nicotine. In anyone's case, it can be anything like that, that you're going on a path of growth, a path of self-improvement when it comes to the spiritual state of being. Whereas when I was, smoking nicotine for that 5.5 years, it was almost as if something had, came into my life at a time where I was very susceptible at a young age. You could say lost, but just in terms of, what is life, what is going on. It takes time for you to be able to tap back into your knowledge and your wisdom, and also to gain that experience through those earlier years in this reality. And once you do gain that experience, you come to realize that, hey, at that point in time, I really didn't have much spiritual strength. I really didn't have any form or any knowledge or any really application or ability to see the perspective of when it comes to spirituality. And when I see it now, I see it as that's just part of the spiritual path. Regardless of what had happened, I could still be doing that action today. That wouldn't affect, per se, who I am when it comes to spiritually. And I could say that throughout the time I experienced a lot of spiritual awakenings. And I know for a fact I experienced spiritual awakenings. There would be, ringing in my ears at weird times. I'd have provisions in my dreams. I'd have just the wildest coincidences, the wildest synchronicities, correlated synchronicities at that, synchronized correlated synchronicities, and the ability to see that spiritual perspective was seemingly always there. And it's not just because, oh, I quit nicotine, now all of a sudden I'm spiritual. No, I don't think that. I know for a fact that everyone is spiritual when they come into this world, being that you are a spirit in a body. And it's just the fact that not everyone is aware of that. And we live in a world and in the times when that's not necessarily mainstream. And hopefully now it will start to become mainstream. And not just hopefully, but it is going to start to become mainstream, because not only just me is putting in the work, but there are countless others putting in the work that are doing the right things and the work that needs to be done in this reality. So that will change, and like many things will change over time. And spiritually, those times of having those spiritual awakenings, those times of, I had one time where I was experiencing, this was up and around the time I'd always get the ringing in my ears. I was getting extremely attacked when it comes to spiritually, also physically, emotionally, and mentally. And I made it through those times only stronger because of it. And I'll tell you what, at one of those time periods, I'd have those little mini puff bars. The mini puff bars that were little colored. They looked like little markers, or it looked like a marker for sure, a little marker like that big. And they'd have flavors. They'd have really sweet flavors. I think the one I did was Midnight Moon or something of that nature, but it was a blue one. That I had the red one too. I'd buy 2 at a time. And I told myself, this was during a mass spiritual awakening for myself. And I recall telling myself, hey, stop smoking marijuana, stop smoking THC, stop smoking weed. It's not right for you. Double down on the nicotine, which is what I did. I doubled down on the nicotine. I've talked about this exactly, not in this detail, which I want to share with you guys because I think this is interesting. I would get off work. If I didn't have one, I'd buy another one. If I had only one, I'd go and buy the second one. I would come home. I would hang out, play games for a little while. All the while, absolutely chain smoking those devices. And I did this with a Juul as well. I did this with other vapes and such, other nicotine devices. But I would make myself kava tea, which already is a substance of itself, already has its own effects on you itself to help wind you down. And I would make that tea at the end of the night. I would put on a video next to my bed, and I would just sit there just absolutely taking in all the information that I could. And I would sit there. I remember previously I got this idea because I had the 2 vapes and I was continuously smoking weed. And so I'm sitting there realizing, hitting the weed and then absolutely chiefing the F out of these mini puff bars till they blink, because it was about, I think, 6 seconds or something like that, till they just blink, blink, blink. You couldn't take a bigger hit than that. Go to the other one, take another hit. I remember the buzzes I would get. I would need to have that tea next to me because I needed to, after those hits, breathe in it as much as possible. I needed to drink some of that kava tea to chill me out. That's crazy what I was doing, and I didn't realize it was how crazy it was. I was doing is 2 different substances just in tandem, just using them one after another. And it would eventually end with me being so absolutely high that I sometimes wouldn't even finish that cup of tea because it would just end up getting cold and I'd end up just drowsing to sleep. But I remember flopping over on my side, because my side table's right here. Picture, I'm on my bed. I'm hitting those devices and I'm drinking some tea and I'm like, okay, that's it, that's enough. I'm about to cash out right now. I remember putting those devices in my side drawer that I had a little bit open. Sometimes I might close it, sometimes I just shove them in there. And I remember sitting back thinking, oh my, I have to quit this shit. This is not right for me. I remember just sitting there feeling that. I was like, I feel so good right now, but I am absolutely destroying my body. And at the same time, I think I feel good. I'm dreadful. I'm actually miserable with this habit. I'm like, can I please shake this habit? And thinking back to it, I couldn't shake the cup. I couldn't kick the cup if I wanted to. But it came out to the fact where I did want to, and I ended up being able to do that. But point of the matter is, and fact of the matter is that I remember back to this day, I can remember the flavor, I can remember exactly how it made me feel, and that's enough motivation for me to continuously grow on this path and continuously see that I'm in the right, spiritual plane of existence right now where I am, and that along the way I've been spiritually protected to be able to see this perspective and remember everything that's played out. And yeah, like I said, I would get the THC high, and then that would absolutely tie in with the tea that I was drinking. Like I said, this was a kava tea. If you don't know what that is, you can look it up. It kind of is a relaxation drink. So it's interesting when you combine THC, nicotine, and tea, which has property in it, and that also has, the mixing and merging of substances to put you in a certain state of being. So it was interesting to experiment in that way. But yeah, it came to the point where I was like, I need to cut out the weed because this is just too much. I'll be healthier if I just double down on the nicotine. And that's what I thought, That's not necessarily what happened, but what that allowed me to do was get off the THC, which was doubling down on the nicotine. But if you're not already on the nicotine, I wouldn't consider doing that in the first place, because it's only if you're using both. So I eliminated the weed for a little bit. As of now, I use it because it has its benefits, and I'm doing it in moderation, and that's really something I didn't actually use, which was moderation for the majority of my years, but now I'm able to now implement moderation. So that's another thing that has come out of this path, as well as got rid of the THC. I'd still have my tea, and I doubled down on, when I had the THC, I'd have probably one nicotine device. And when I had those two little ones, they'd work together. But then when I didn't have those, I'd probably have a larger one that would probably also get me buzzed. But yeah, so I said to myself, I'm going to double down on the nicotine. This is going to ride me out. I'm going to be fine. It's going to be putting me in a space of comfort. So I doubled down on the nicotine. And I remember that I was even more miserable. This all happened within like a couple months, and I remember each week that went by, going to bed continuously, just absolutely clutched. Absolutely, I don't know what I just said. That's not really even a word, but I kind of like that I said that. And I mean closely attached to the devices, and just remembering how miserable I was and being like, oh, may it be the last night that I am involved in this actions. And bringing it together, that was during a highly spiritual awakening for me. I think I was either 19 or 18 going on 19. That whole time, really strong times of spiritual awakening. And even now, spiritually, I'm realizing this whole past year was a very expansive, very growth period when it comes to my spiritual state of being and my ability to understand spirituality and understand what about my spiritual state of being is teaching me, and how I can spiritually continue on that path and spiritually experience and continue gaining that experience. But yeah, I shared that story because I just want you guys to know, like, truly how much I was on the nicotine and to what extent. And I have a lot of other stories that I'll share in other videos and stuff like that, and stuff that you guys can listen to. But what was I just gonna say? No, I shared that story, and then recently I gotta share on the last couple minutes of this video. And guys, if you made this to my video, I appreciate the support. And if you made it to this point in the video, you're a real one. I respect you. I respect you for that. And lastly, spiritually, this past week, I'd say it was, let's see, it's Saturday right now, so Friday, Thursday. 2 days ago, I was in a space where I was leaving an area where, my grandparents would reside, and that place is still there, and it's a great residence. It's a place that always feels like home, and that you feel the spiritual presence in the place, and you feel how it feels as if it's a protected area, and that is important to me. And I had to take some time there because my grandfather, who passed away in that house, rest in peace, James. I love you, and he knows that, and I know that, and he was actually taken away from us because of, lung cancer, because of, not necessarily it had anything to do with his use of ever doing anything like smoking or anything like that, but it was because asbestos in factories, and when he was working in these factories, he got exposed to asbestos, which now affected the lungs and then caused a cancer that is, I think it's a rarish cancer, mesothelioma, that caused his his passing away, but he was the strongest, most inspirational man that I have ever looked up to, and he really was always strong and was always supportive, and he was very strong up until the end. And I'm realizing that spiritually, not only do I have other things that are going on, that I can look back at my spiritual predecessors. In other words, if you guys don't know that term, it's just a better term for ancestors, the people that have come before you. I'm realizing that my grandfather who came before me, who is a reason why I'm here to this day, for he had my father and my father had me, and these, people that I've come from, I look up to and I inspire them, and I'm inspired by them. And my grandpa especially, because he was taken from this world by being exposed to products and things that weren't right, that weren't meant to be in the lungs. And I realized that that's another reason why I do what I do. That's why I am carrying the torch from my past generations into the future generations. I remind myself that my spiritual connection to my spiritual predecessors can be something that pushes me into a better state of spiritual existence, a better state of mental, emotional, and physical state of being. And when I'm able to see it as a perspective, I'm able to embrace my spiritual state of being, and I'm able to continue on a path of spiritually growing. And that is a realization that I have made, and that is because I do it because of these deep reasons. And there's reasons that are not just physical, that are not just mental and emotional, but there are spiritual reasons for why I'm here, and why I'm carrying out the purpose that I am carrying out. So that's going to be it for the 1 year check-in. Catch you in the next one.